In today's show, the Trailblazers put on an absolute masterclass in losing, an inspiring performance to guarantee they didn't beat the San Antonio Spurs. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making the show your first listen. Coming at you every single weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it your first listen. Make it part of your daily routine. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. Today's show, we're going to talk about a virtuoso losing performance. One of the great losing performances you will ever see. Portland's commitment to not getting wins inspired me. I've come to the other side. And I really see some beauty in the absolute nonsense. I don't see beauty. But I'll lie to you all a little bit. We'll talk about their game. They lost to the Spurs. We'll talk about some solutions to prevent games like this from happening. On yesterday's show, I had Keith Parrish on, and he pitched his perfect plan to end tanking, which I really like. I'll pitch a couple others from my research and how to avoid nights like this. TM. And then to close the show, I want to just talk about what's next. The next time we talk, it's the final show before the season ends. The next time we talk, the Blazers year will be over. So we'll close the show with a little bit of what's next, what's to come, what to expect, why to get on board now type of thing. Should be a bunch of fun, but let's talk about this basketball game. The Blazers, they did it. They lose 129-127 to the San Antonio Spurs in Austin. The Blazers dropped to 24-7 on the season when scoring at least 115 points. And what a time to score 115 and still lose. Portland was up 37-32 after one. This was going to be a game. Trent Watford was healthy and available. Drew Eubanks was healthy and available. Skylar Mays was playing. They were getting Nate Williams minutes. Kevin Knox available off the bench. No Cam Reddish, no Matisse Thybulle. Obviously no Shaedon Sharpe. It was like as soon as Shaedon Sharpe's name ended as soon as he was pulled from the game, as soon as he was pulled from the final 8 minutes and his name showed up on the injury report, there's 0% chance he was playing. His season's done. Congrats, Shaedon Sharpe. Too good to play. I'm proud of you, dog. Too good to play. What a world. So the Spurs, they're not doing what the Blazers are doing, right? They're not resting their vets. They just built a terrible team on purpose. To me, I don't know the difference here. What the Blazers are doing is tanking, right? Because the ship was sailing along and they said, "Oh no, let's sink it." The Spurs always meant to pilot a submarine. They were always going to be below the surface. They were bad all year. They've secured one of the three worst records in the league. This is what they were after, and that they did it. But they're playing their dudes. Keldon Johnson came back from an injury, and he's playing. Trey Jones is playing. Zach Collins came back and closed out the fourth quarter. He's been their starting center since they traded away Jakob Poeltl. Yeah, the Spurs are naturally bad they're not totally healthy by any means, but with a somewhat healthy roster playing their guys, the Blazers are going the other way. Or going aggressively the other way, maybe in the same direction, but even more aggressively. So, this was going to be close. This was always going to be a competitive game because these are two of the worst rosters in the league, and the Blazers were committed to having even worse roster. But Portland up 37-32 after one, but found themselves down 8 at halftime. They're down 69-61 at the break. Spurs score 37 in the second quarter, and it's okay, well, maybe Keldon Johnson is an NBA starter, and Zach Collins is playing pretty well, and Trey Jones is playing pretty well. Maybe it's going to go away. Spurs led by as many as 9 in that third quarter. Looks like it might just be sort of, okay, it's out of reach. But Blazers close the third quarter strong and take a lead into the fourth, 198, and then it meant the shenanigans must ensue. The Blazers led 119-110 with 5:26 left. Halfway through the period, up 119-110. They got to figure out a way. They got to figure out a way to lose this game, and they're going to. Spurs rip off a 13-0 run to take a 4-point lead with 3:06 remaining. So in about 2.5 minutes, 2 minutes and 20 seconds, the Spurs outscore the Blazers by 13. Portland starts turning the ball over. They stopped playing a point guard. That helped a lot. And then the Blazers down 2 with 1 minute and 8 seconds left. Jabari Walker gets inside, goes into the body of Zach Collins and makes a great pass underneath. That's going to be a pretty darn easy dunk, except whistle, offensive foul going the other way. Chauncey Billups sitting on 2 timeouts, 2-point game with 1 minute left, elects not to challenge. Masterclass in trying to lose this basketball game. Blazers trade buckets, find themselves down 2 again, needing a stop under 30 seconds. Keldon Johnson drives baseline, makes a reverse layup, lets out a roar, a championship-level roar to the crowd at the Moody Center in Austin. Spurs hold on from there. They win 129-127. That's your fastest recap in the West. Incredible game. Drew Eubanks was awesome. 23 points, hit 3 3-pointers, blocked 5 shots, was awesome. Drew Eubanks was awesome. He came back and played the final 4 minutes. I was pretty surprised by that because he had been so good that I thought they were going to bench him for the rest of the game, much like they did Skylar Mays, who played the first 6 minutes of that third quarter, and they said, get out of here. Like, you've been too good. Go on somewhere. Find yourself a spot at the end of the bench. Trendon Watford, according to the Blazers broadcast, was on a 20-minute minutes restriction. He played 19:44. They played Trendon Watford. They used up his minutes restriction minutes before they got to crunch time. Kind of incredible stuff. Kevin Knox, really good off the bench. He finished with 24. Knox, in the open court is fun. He made threes tonight. When he makes threes, he's like a pretty good basketball player. Kind of inconsistent with his production, and it's hard to know what he'd be like against like really high-level competition, but he's had some good games during this intentionally losing stretch. I hope it works out for Knox. I don't think he'll be back in Portland, but I think he has enough physical tools to probably stick in the league. If he could figure it out on defense at any level, he has like the offensive, particularly open court athleticism and size to be like a really intriguing player, but he struggled a little bit. Shaq on the defensive end. Shaq Harrison, 10 points. Jabari Walker, 8. Justin Minaya, 7, including a hilarious bank 3-pointer in the fourth quarter. Skylar Mays 11-7 before he sat. Trendon Watford 16-6 and 3 assists before he sat. John Butler Jr. 12 points. We'll get back to John Butler Jr. in a second. Julian Champagnie 24, including 17 in the first half off the bench for the Spurs. It's like, Julian Champagnie, who I called Justin in a show earlier this week, that's his brother. I thought it was Justin Champagnie. That dude plays for the Raptors G League. Julian Champagnie is the St. John's Champagnie as opposed to the Pitt St. Champagnie that his brother is. He had 24 off the bench to go with Keldon Johnson. Big body, had 24, including a big reverse layup late. Keita Bates-Diop 25, Zach Collins 21, 10 boards, 4 assists against his former team. What a huge game. Zach Collins helping the Blazers win this game. Huge game for him. 18-10 from Trey Jones, who was really good. This game's kind of incredible. With 6 minutes and 20 seconds left in this game, Skylar Mays has been benched, right? Played the first 5.5 minutes of third quarter. You're good. Sit down. You can't play. We're trying to lose. Can't play. Get out of here. Shaq Harrison, NBA vet, played some years in the leagues, back on a 10-day contract. He comes in. He plays the midway through the third quarter to the midway through the fourth quarter mark. Blazers are comfortably in the lead. They're up 8 when he gets pulled. Get out of here. Put in, looking down the bench. They don't have any guards. Who are they going to put in? They're putting in Kevin Knox. For the final 6 minutes and 20 seconds of this basketball game, Chauncey Billups elected to play two-way rookie John Butler Jr., the 7-foot, 165-pound wing at point guard. That's why John Butler Jr. is our Nissan Aria Electric Player of the Week. The most electric player of the week brought to you by the all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Aria. At point guard, John Butler was brilliantly fierce. He was fiercely elegant, elegantly powerful, some would say. He was electric in helping the Blazers blow a lead and guarantee they would lose. He delivered the duality, the combination of fierceness and elegance, beautiful but strong, the perfect SUV crossover, and the perfect 7-1 point guard who hadn't played a single minute of point guard or had a single on-ball rep running pick and rolls or getting team organized ever in his NBA career. The perfect SUV crossover to lose you a basketball game that you absolutely need to lose. It's a 2023 Nissan Ariya. Packs pin-to-your-seat power and premium intelligence all in one EV, the same way that John Butler Jr. packs intriguing rim protection and also the perfect point guard to lose you a basketball game hilariously in the final week of the season. The all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Ariya. It's the EV for people who love to drive. Shop now at NissanUSA.com. All right. What a special season it's been. Like this. So I've done my share of whining about the tank. Like I hate it. I'll be honest. Like I hate that they are playing basketball games to lose. But I've said this a bunch. I know I'm not sure everyone hears me when I say it. I get why they're doing it. I'm not confused about why it's going down. I understand. I've seen Victor Wembanyama. I've watched him play. He's on League Pass. Like they put him on the NBA app all the time. Shout out to my man Kevin Dana calling the games on League Pass. I've heard Kevin Dana call 3 games. Like, I get it. But there is something so incredible about being in a game against one of the worst teams in the league. Like San Antonio is doing the same thing. Like don't get it twisted. Like I'm not saying like the Blazers are doing something different, but they're both after the same thing. This is San Antonio committed to it like last July, and the Blazers committed to this in February. So it's, both of these teams are trying to be bad. The Blazers are just trying to be bad at like such a wildly aggressive level that is like, it's kind of unknowable. Not challenging a foul when your players are saying challenge with a minute left in a 2-point game is like so insulting to basketball. Playing a dude like aggressively out of position because specifically it won't work is wild. Like it's so much. It's so much. Chauncey Billups, I used to say players and coaches don't tank, organizations don't tank. Chauncey Billups tanks, y'all. That guy is committed to the cause. One thing that's this is like a media thing was kind of bummed me out is that because the Blazers stink, like no one is sending reporters on the road. So the only like Blazers media that's there is like in-house media, and like Casey Holdall can't grill Chauncey Billups on. So why didn't you play a point guard down the stretch? Why didn't Shaedon Sharpe play the last 8 minutes? Like that's like they're literally have the same employer. It's not Casey should not do that. And I'm not saying like Casey get his ass. Like no, he shouldn't. That's like absolutely not Casey's job. But it is kind of a bummer that Chauncey hasn't had to pretend like he was trying to win with these decisions. He's just like, yeah, we didn't execute down the stretch. Bummer. It's like, come on, dog. We all saw what you did. It's really special. I think as much as it's I think like disrespectful to the game, insulting to the game, and I do really earnestly believe that, the Blazers are so committed to this in such a comical and like gross way that I've come all the way to the other side. I've made it to the other side of the river. I'm on the banks. I'm on the banks of embracing this and just like, wow, this is incredible. It's art almost art to play John Butler Jr. at point guard down the stretch. You know who did that back in the day? The 2011-2012 Warriors, who closed games at the end of that season playing Dominic McGuire, a veteran power forward, at point guard down the stretch in order to ensure that they would get a lottery-protected top 7 pick that ended up being Harrison Barnes, who ended up being a key part of a championship team and then a key starter on one of the best lineups, key member of one of the best lineups that the league has ever seen has certainly seen in the last 10 years, the Warriors' death lineup that won a cajillion games and then lost to LeBron James in the finals, and Kyrie Irving. for sure. The whole Cavs, I guess, won. We'll give them credit. But like the Warriors did it to chase Harrison, to chase the 7th pick. The Blazers are doing it to chase a generational talent. Like this is something that has sort of been part of the league for a long time. And it's been a decade since this was like a really big part of the conversation, when the Sixers were doing it with the process and getting Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, and also like Jahlil Okafor and Nerlens Noel during that stretch. And then with Presti doing something similar to it in OKC, and whatever Houston has been doing the last 3 years as well. It's like, this has been an ongoing thing for at least a decade, and certainly like the Spurs pretty much chased it down in 1997 too. Like, this is not a new phenomenon. And instead of, like, I got my whining out earlier this week. Thank you all who offered. I was able to get some cheese with that wine. I am from Chapel Hill, North Carolina. After all, that's the type of crowd my people are. If you get that reference, shout out to you and Sam Cassell. But instead of whining, let's offer some solutions. There's a couple draft solutions I really, really like, or lottery solutions, like fixing tanking solutions, like kind of tweaking how we approach draft order and how we approach the lottery system that I really, really like. One of the things, and a bunch of you emailed me, and I saw these comments on YouTube as well, is like to have some sort of tournament to decide who gets the top pick. Tournament doesn't make any sense to me. The players playing in the games to decide who gets the top pick, that top pick's coming to take their jobs. Why the hell does Drew Eubanks want to play for someone to come take his job? Drew Eubanks, like, for these folks, like for the Kevin Knoxes, even for the Cam Reddishes of the world, it's like, what is my motivation to help this team get a really good draft pick so they can pick a teenager to come boot me up out of here? Like, players playing for draft compensation doesn't make sense. They need to be incentivized with money, because if you're incentivizing them to like have more people compete for their spot in a closed ecosystem, it doesn't work. Like, it's why the one and done stuff didn't get changed in the CBA. Players don't want more college dudes coming in. They want, keep them out as long as you can. Have them go to the G League. That sounds like a great route. I want to stay in the league. So I don't like that. I don't like flattening the lottery odds totally, because that doesn't change tanking. It just changes the line where tanking is. Imagine if the Los Angeles Lakers and Dallas Mavericks were chasing, chasing the last couple play-in spots. Now, Dallas is probably not going to make it. They're going to be a lottery team. But imagine if they, instead of playing down the stretch, were like, oh, well, we can just lose and we'll have the exact same odds as a team who's been terrible all year at getting Victor Wembanyama. There is no way, there's no way the Lakers and the Mavericks are playing. Like, the league has done a pretty good job with like general flattening of the odds and creating the play-in tournament to reduce the number of teams that are really tanking. It's just the Blazers have been the egregious offenders each of the last 2 years. Flattening the odds moves the line where teams at that line of 7, 8, 9 really are like, no, we don't, like, why do we want to go to Denver and lose in the first round? Like, this doesn't, what would that, if the option is have whatever the flat odds would be, 6.8% chance, like equal chance of all 14 teams getting Victor Wembanyama, or losing to the Denver Nuggets and getting a couple home playoff games, absolutely we're losing this week. Like, it would make things worse. Don't like flattening the odds, don't like a tournament. So what do I like? I like the wheel. Shout out to Blazer James, who reminded me of the wheel, sent me a link to a story about it. It was an AP story, but I read the 2013 Grantland story by Zach Lowe about the wheel. The wheel is a fixed lottery system. I like the wheel, and I like one other one. We'll start with the wheel, and then we'll start with my more radical version to close the show. The wheel is a fixed lottery system in which you know your draft slot regardless of your record, and it goes in cycles, 30-year cycles. So you get a guaranteed top 12 pick every 4 years and a guaranteed top 5 pick every 6 years, and it's known. It is known. So the idea would be like, okay, we enact this now. The last owed pick is in 2028, so this begins in 2029. And in 2029, we'll have one final draft lottery that will decide the order, and then it'll go from there. Whoever wins that draft lottery for the 2029 draft would pick first, 30th, 19th, 18th, 7th, and then the wheel would continue, 6th, 25th, 23rd, 14th, 11th. That would be their 10-year cycle. So you know exactly where you're going to be, not just for 10 years, but for 30 years. I'm just not going to read you 30 numbers out, but 1, 30, 19, 18, 7. That would be your 5 years to make a plan. So you can kind of build your roster with that understanding. You don't have to have these crazy trade protections. If it's here and here, then you get this. It's just like, we're trading you our 2032 pick. It's the 18th pick in the 2032 draft. That's yours. I like this because it does not incentivize you to lose. It makes because there is no lottery. They're just, hey, you play, you keep going, you build the best team you can, and you know when the season starts what your draft compensation is going to look like. It doesn't mean that you can't trade for a bunch of picks. Like, you could be aggressive and say, hey, we're going to, we know everyone's selections for years out. We're going to trade for a future 4th overall pick. Teams would be less likely to do that, but at some point, it's like, hey, we're trying to win a championship. Sure, we're going to trade the number 4 overall pick in 5 years when we have it, because this gets us a star right now and we can win a title, and that's the whole point of this thing anyways. I like the wheel. I worry, my issue with the wheel is that you're picking around the same teams all the time and shenanigans might ensue. So if you're one, obviously you kind of cycle a little bit, but if you pick in that same range, once the wheel starts, you're going to be in the same range as the same teams for that cycle for 30 years, and it's going to reset. So some shenanigans could ensue where people are, picking a guy they know you want and blah, 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 blah. I think it get a little messy. It get really frustrating between teams. So I have seen this pitched. I've seen it a couple different places, but a modified version of the wheel where the only things that matter are the top 5 pick every 6 years. So you're guaranteed. So if you use the same wheel, you would get 1, 6, 5, 2, 3, 4. Every 6 years, you'd get every 6 years you get one of those selections. And so then over the course of 30 years, you'd be guaranteed one of those top picks. And the rest of the draft is decided by where you finish. So you can still tank, but you can only tank, you can only tank to 7, or we can only tank to 6, right? Because you're getting 1, 5, 2, 3, 4 cycled through every 6 years. And so you can only tank to 6. I said 6 in my first time I did it around. I apologize. So 1, 5, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is, 1, 5, 4, 2, 3, whatever the number might be. But everyone cycles through that every 6 seasons. You're guaranteed a top 5 pick at every 6 seasons. And if you bottom out, you can get to 6, you can get to 7. So terrible teams could say hey, we know we're in our cycle. Let's get 7 this year, and next year we're going to get the number 2 overall pick. Then we'll get 7 again next year. That's 3 consecutive top 10 picks. It still maybe leads to teams tanking, but it doesn't, the incentive, for the Victor Wembanyama thing, you're chasing Harrison Barnes. You're not chasing Victor Wembanyama. You're chasing hey, there's a chance to get a long-term starter in the league. Let's go get him, as opposed to generational talent that leads you to playing John Butler Jr. at the end of games, because you want to play someone who's literally completely out of position to play point guard. I like this one. I have a more radical solution for you. I'm going to pitch that to close the show. But before we do that, I want to tell you that today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, the number 1 sports book in America. And as we head into the NBA playoffs, there's no better time than to get involved. Get into FanDuel, because you can get back a no-sweat first bet. That's up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, super easy to use. Think about everything. Money line, 3-pointers drained, highest scores, who wins the first half, second quarter point totals, everything. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss your chance at a no-sweat first bet, up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond, and you are still listening to Locked On Blazers. I pitched the wheel. I like the wheel. I like the modified wheel. I like the fixed lottery. I like the wheel in general. I think the just top 5 pick wheel, or top 6 pick, top 5 pick wheel, where it's every 6 years, you're guaranteed a top 5 pick and you can bottom out to 6th if you want. I think that helps a lot. Do I think any of this happens? No. So as long as I'm pitching stuff that I don't think will happen, how about a really radical idea? Abolish the draft. I've heard a lot of my fellow radicals pitch this one. It is imperfect, but the idea, let's just go with the simplest one. Rookies are free agents, which means that what you would do this summer is you would create cap space in order to sign Victor Wembanyama. Now, the whole CBA would need to be changed, because you would need to be able to offer Wembanyama a max contract immediately. You would probably need to abolish max contracts in general so that everyone could compete, because it's like if every team could create a max contract, you're still getting the glamour markets. Miami and Los Angeles, like the warm places people sign. There's like 7 teams in the league that actually sign free agents, but it's in terms of like big free agents, it's not even the Knicks. Shout out to Jalen Brunson, but it's like it's so few teams that are like actually participating in high level free agency. The best way for a non-glamour market, smaller market team to sign a marquee free agent is have one of the best players in the history of the sport clandestinely be born in the northeast corner of your state. That's literally the only way it's worked out recently, is the kid from Akron. So I think in general, abolishing the draft, creating a situation where there is no salary cap, or there is like a modified salary cap so you can offer a whole bunch of money to rookies in order to appeal to the top players to come play in your market. So then that would come play for your team, rather. That would prioritize teams creating systems that attracted players. You cannot overcome the fact that today in Portland, it was absolutely disgusting. It was so cold and so wet. That's not going to change. You're not going to change the straight up racial demographics of Oregon and its history that has created such racial demographics in a league that is something like 70% Black people, African Americans, whatever, Black Americans, whatever you'd like, prefer. Black folks. It's 70% Black Americans. Oregon's not that. It's super white, super wet is going to be tough. But what if you created a community, like a basketball franchise, in which players were treated incredibly well? So you did the Mark Cuban thing where you always had them on the nicest, like you come in, you get the Cuban jet, incredibly nice jet. You build the nicest practice facility. You up the quality of your franchise. You know what that benefits? Owners who want to spend and make things appealing. It would put pressure on owners to spend money, and that's how small markets are going to compete, is really rich people overcoming the realities of where things are, of the Milwaukees and of the Portlands and of the Minneapolises, like cities that are perfectly okay unless you're a freaking millionaire 22-year-old and you're like, I would rather live in Miami. It's warm there and there's no tax. There's the taxes are very different. It ain't Oregon. It's not even California. You would create an environment perhaps that was famous for developing young players, and say, okay, this is a place I know if I go sign with the Blazers, they have a history of developing young guys. I will sign with them over more desirable markets. Or the simplest thing, if you have the role, the minutes, the shots, and the chance to be a star, do you think Paolo Banchero is going to go join a team where he can't be a star? Or do you think coming out of Duke, this dude's like, I'm the best player in my draft class. I want to go somewhere where they're going to give me the ball. I can score 25 points right away. I can be the franchise icon. Like the appeal of that, hey, maybe I do want to sign with the Wizards. Maybe I do want to sign with the Magic. Maybe I do want to sign with these sort of non-glamour teams because it can be more appealing. Maybe that is the move. What it would put a priority on is not running a dysfunctional franchise, having an appealing team. So like responsibly running a team that is like isn't freaking awful, hires the right people, of all those things, and being prudent with your money so you don't spend way too much money on the Harrison Barneses. So then when the draft comes around, you do not have you weren't smart with your cap space, and now it's like, oh, generational talent 4 years from now, but we're already capped out. We already made some aggressive plays. I think abolishing the draft is the most fair way to do things because it's much like a draft it's very American, like drafting into it's like foreign to, if you talk to anyone who like is a fan of leagues around the world. A draft is a very American thing where it's like, hey, you're done, and now we will tell you where to work. You will be forced to work here for, in the NBA, up to 9 consecutive years before you can like head out on your own and decide where you play. You got to stay healthy and get good, and then you can decide where you play. I think I'm into abolishing the draft because it rewards well-run teams more than anything else, and it allows rookies coming into the league to pick their spots. You get to a team that signs you, you might be more invested in. If you're more invested in them, you're going to grow them together instead of this like forced marriages of the draft, instead of being caught into saying, particularly like teams that you're like 4th in the draft and you're like, well, these 3 dudes are top of our board, so we're just going to take whoever the hell is 4th because we're going to get there. We locked into it. A free agent version of the draft would not reward teams that just like fall into the 4th draft slot and draft who's ever there. You have to be smart. You'd have to scout. You could find some market inefficiencies by being better at scouting, by being smarter about that stuff. There's a lot to it that I think rewards smart team building in a way that the draft doesn't. There's like some obvious problems because LA is still going to be LA and Miami's still going to be Miami, and it's like there's still going to be value in living in the state of Texas for rich people. New York is going to be New York. I mean, I guess like James Dolan still owns the Knicks, so that'll hurt them a little bit, but like, it's there, the glamour markets would still win out in this situation, but it would be a way, in my eyes, if there was like an adjusted cap, for teams that are smaller market teams, for well-run, to get in there and to make aggressive plays and to make shrewd decisions both on the front end and the back end to maximize chances to be good with rookies. There you go. That's my 2 pitches: the wheel and abolish the draft altogether and make them all free agents. You might ask, hey, Mike, the season's ending. What are you going to do? I'm going to stick around. Like, this show doesn't go anywhere. I get it, right? Like, what makes this show great is that every morning you wake up, every weekday morning you wake up, it's in your feed waiting for you. I know what it is. And guess what? It's going to be in your feed waiting for you all off season. Locked On does go away from 5 days a week, but not until August. That means all off season long, you're going to have 5 Locked On Blazers shows in your feed. So we are not going to pivot to the draft immediately. We're going to do what I have called exit interviews. We're going to look at some bold predictions I made at the beginning of the season, and I did previews for every player on the roster. We're going to look back at those previews, talk about what players did this season, and talk about what I got right, what I got wrong, and look ahead to how they're going to fit into the off-season plans. We're going to pivot into off-season stuff. We'll get into draft mode. I'll bring a bunch of draft experts on. We'll talk about what's going to happen, but this show is going to ramp up into fun off-season content. So if you are like need to bail on me talking about tanking, guess what? There's 2 more games left. We're not going to talk about it ever again. We're going to talk about what's next for the Blazers, and they're entering one of the most fascinating off-seasons that they've had in a long time. This era has reached a pivot point, and we are going to set up, looking at every player on the roster, what that pivot point means. We're going to look at the draft and what they can do there. We're going to look at free agency and trades and all of those things. Every day, every weekday, in your feed. Come hang out. Tell your friends to do the same. It's a great time to get on board. I appreciate you listening. Come back next week. The off-season begins on Monday. Next time you hear me, the off-season's here. I appreciate you listening. Talk to you soon.